Hello. We welcome all those who joined our next broadcast. My name is Evgeny Petrov. I am the Deputy General Director for Marketing of Unitsky String Technologies. In the series of broadcasts on the eve of the new year, at the end of 2023, we summarize the results of the work of Unitsky String Technologies and satellite companies for the expiring year and answer the questions that those who follow the development of the project have sent us throughout the year. Today, we have Sergey Gennadievich Tarasov, Director of UST Testing and Certification Center, Sharjah, United Arab Emirates. We have here today the Director of Marketing Company, Unitsky String Technologies, LLC, Moscow, as well as employees of Unitsky String Technologies, CJSC, and Unitsky String Technologies, Maxim Nikolaevich Gusev. He is the head of Project Management Department, and Alexei Sergeyevich Savin, Director of Production Complex, SV Plant. In this issue, we will discuss the competencies, assets, and material base that the group of companies currently has at its disposal for the implementation of commercial projects. We are talking about the fact that today, more than 1,000 specialists, 60 design bureaus, a number of companies in Russia, Belarus, and the United Arab Emirates are working on the implementation of the technology in the group of companies. Now, India is joining, Indonesia is joining. We are all working together on the implementation of string transport projects, localization of string transport in certain regions. We talked about this in previous issues. But still, one of such important assets was and remains our general designer, Anatoly Eduardovich Unitsky. Arsene, I'd like to ask you to speak out on this subject.
Об этом мы говорили в предшествующих выпусках. Но все-таки одним из таких важных активов был и остается наш генеральный конструктор Unitsky Анатолий Эдуардович. Арсен Владимирович, я бы хотел попросить вас на эту тему высказаться.
I think the most important asset is the technology that has taken place. You can say that with a high degree of certainty. And it took place for many reasons. Firstly, a scientific engineering school has been formed in Minsk, which has several hundred wonderful engineers and scientific engineering personnel of other specialties who are carriers of this technology. Once, 12 years ago, when I met Anatoly Eduardovich, you might say he was the only person who understood and nurtured this technology. There is a school today, and I believe that is the guarantee that technology has taken place.
Единственным лицом, которое, так сказать, понимал и, скажем так, вынашивал эту технологию. Сегодня есть школа. И я считаю, что это залог и гарантия того, что технология состоялась.
Thank you, Arsene. Indeed, the participation of the general designer in the work carried out by the Unitsky String Technologies team and the teams of companies involved in the implementation of Unitsky String Technologies Inc. projects is very important. However, I would like to point out that all fundamental decisions regarding marketing strategy, regarding business models in which our projects are implemented, are still made by the general designer, but more importantly, technological solutions, not ideas or technical specifications, but solutions, are also issued directly by Anatoly Eduardovich. Nevertheless, those who follow our project have a number of questions related to the activities of both the testing centers in Belarus and the testing center in the Arab Emirates. In particular, they ask why, in the opinion of observers, it is taking so long to build our new line, which is 2.5 kilometers long, and which we now operationally call Carat. I would like to ask you, Sergey Gennadievich, as the person directly responsible for the project, to tell us what stage the project is at now, what has been done over the year, and by what staff, what team, and what we should expect in the near future, at the end of this year and the beginning of next year.
Carat. Вот хотелось бы у вас, наверное, Сергей Геннадьевич, как непосредственно ответственного за это направление человека, ну, в первую очередь ответственного, понятно, что здесь целый круг ответственных лиц есть, попросить рассказать о том, на каком этапе сейчас находится проект, о том, что было за год сделано и каким составом, каким коллективом, да, и что нам ждать вот в ближайшей перспективе, конец этого года, начало следующего.
Hello, colleagues. Hello, Evgeny Olegovich. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me to this working meeting. I am honored to speak on this point, too, on the directions in terms of USky transport, the directions we are going in terms of testing and certification of Unitsky String Technology at the moment, and in Sharjah in particular, regarding our achievements over the past year. Some people are concerned that, in their opinion, the construction of individual structures takes a little longer than someone expects. In fact, I would like to express my disagreement here because if we take an example specifically on test section number 4, which we completed this year, with a length of, as you mentioned, 2.5 kilometers to be precise, 2,400 meters. The construction of the track structure of the flyover was completed in a 10-month period, and I consider this a great achievement for the entire group of companies because the construction of such an order, the construction of such a type of structure, first of all, you need to understand, has no analogs in the world. Because I will note separately the fact that we even had the main difficulties not during construction, but at the beginning of construction. Because when the construction, design, engineering documentation was handed over to potential local contractors in the Emirates market, most of them, as they say, just scratched their heads and didn't know what to do with it because of the unique character of the product, the unique character of our solutions. And a significant part of the project time, the duration of the project, was spent on explaining to our potential contractors, general contractors, suppliers, and so on, how these structures should be erected, how construction should be carried out, according to what norms, standards, requirements, regulations, and so on. In the summer of 2022, a contract was signed for the construction of the track structure, and we engaged the local contracting company Galadari, which is one of the largest contractors in the Emirates market in terms of steel structures. Accordingly, from this moment on, we can assume that we have started the countdown on construction. And in fact, we had the construction of the flyover completed in a 10-month period. That is, starting from the zero cycle. In this case, I do not call the zero cycle any foundation work, as is customary in construction, but preparatory work, the study of suppliers who were not contracted at that time, and the mobilization of the contractor, its subcontractor, and so on, until the moment of lifting the track structure to a height, to the design elevation. All this took us 10 months. And when we completed these construction installation works at the beginning of this year, accordingly, after that we started, according to our methodology, the stage of commissioning.
Подъема путевой структуры на высоту, на проектную отметку. Все это заняло у нас 10 месяцев. И когда мы завершили эти строительно-монтажные работы в начале этого года, 2023 года, соответственно, после этого у нас начался по нашей методологии этап
startup and adjustment works, which are still being carried out today. We subdivided the commissioning work into 2 stages. Commissioning work on the track structure, because the track structure should be tested, inspected, and checked after its construction. Again, for compliance with different regulations, different indicators, characteristics, values. After the inspection of the track structure, we started the commissioning of the vehicle, which we call Carat, a 25-seater unibus. The weight of the vehicle is about almost 9 tons. To be precise, 8,890 kilograms, and the gross weight with passengers, that is, 25 passengers inside the cabin, up to 12 tons. That is, again, you should understand that 12 tons is not so easy to hang in the air, because not only does it hang there like fairy lights on a Christmas tree, it has to move along this track structure, move safely, comfortably for passengers in accordance. Again, with those very unfortunate regulations, standard requirements, both local and European and American. I will point out this is a very important fact. There is a set of laws and regulations in the Emirates. They have local regulations that have been adopted and are still being adopted. They have been working out since the beginning of the country's foundation, and American and British standards are in use here. Accordingly, all these factors, all these points should be taken into account in the aggregate, because if we are talking about a European country, or again, Russia, it is clear that we have SNPs, GOSTs, and so on. And in in the Emirates, this task is a little bit more complicated because we need to ensure that our product meets a number of standards, a whole set of standards, so to say. Therefore, Evgeny Olegovich, I think, answered this question, that long-term construction. According to some people, in my case, I refute this rhetoric a little bit because given the complexity of all this, what I mentioned, it seems to me that USky Transport, together with our colleagues from String Technologies, CJSC, and our other partners and companies, has achieved a tremendous result for this period of time.
Я думаю, ответил на этот вопрос, что долгосрочное строительство, по мнению некоторых, в моем случае немножко я эту риторику опровергаю, потому что с учетом сложности вот всего этого, то, что я озвучил, мне кажется, USky Transport совместно с коллегами из ЗАО «Струнные технологии» и другими нашими партнерами и компаниями добилась колоссального результата за указанный период времени.
Thank you. Here, in fact, again, I would emphasize the role of the general designer, whose direct participation, direct involvement in the development of the design documentation allowed us to implement the facility in record time according to the drawings that we made here at Unitsky String Technologies Inc. If we imagine that a 2.5-kilometer underground line would be built in 10 months, it is not realistic at all. I support Evgeny Olegovich because it is important to note the fact that, as you say correctly, Anatoly Eduardovich was actively involved. I am even a little bit proud of the fact that such a construction has not yet been built at Marina Gorka in Minsk, that is, USky, even within the group of companies, was the first company to bring this goal to reality. Obviously, due to the novelty of this project, there were difficulties during installation. There's no need to hide it. There were difficulties. There were, perhaps, some holdbacks and delays at some stages in which the general designer Anatoly Eduardovich was actively involved. And perhaps because of his direct involvement, we managed to adapt, upgrade, improve some solutions during the process, and finally achieve the goal that we achieved. Thank you, Sergei Gennadievich. I absolutely agree with you. And yet, the difficulties you mentioned. Here I would like to address another question, and I guess the question would be to our project management department. What role does this complex, this heavy-duty, semi-rigid flyover that we built in the Arab Emirates, what role does it play in the work on commercial projects currently underway at Unitsky String Technologies Inc? Maxim Nikolaevich, please comment. Sure. Hello, everyone. Look, the most direct, most interesting role is played here by TU4, as we call it. It's an internal name. It's like you said, engineers, designers. It is like sailors say not compass, but compass. So for some reason, in engineering environment, it is accepted to say not engineers, but engineer, which from the point of view of language norms is not very correct. And we call the track TU4. Yes, this is test site number 4. It's just an internal name. And we're really trying to immerse you in how our work goes here, so that's why we're using that term right now. Firstly, TU4 is the longest track so far. And look, what's remarkable about it, because there's a greater number of solutions out there that are, let's put it this way, innovative for us. This is one of the most serious loads that can be applied to building structures, one of the most powerful track structures or string structures we've ever built.
Путевой структуры, да, то есть или струнной структуры, вот, которую мы когда-либо строили. По поводу транспортного средства.
But here, Maxim Nikolaevich, Sergei Gennadievich, correct me if I'm wrong. You said 12 tons is the curb weight with passengers of our 25-seater Carat. But as far as I know, this flyover is designed for a much heavier load, up to 60 tons over the span. That's right. I'll make just one correction. Curb weight is the weight of the vehicle without load, that is, without passengers. It is 9 tons, and the gross vehicle weight with passengers, with all the cargo, goes up to 12 tons. But in fact, yes, we have a track designed for loads up to 60 tons. You've made a good point. As I said, yes, I mean, container vehicles and so on could theoretically go along this track in the future if we have such a need. What I was saying about the vehicle, it kind of seemed like its capacity was 25 people. people, which isn't that much. If we remove the legislative aspect, that there should be a certain number of meters for each person and so on, then up to 40 can be placed there. At rush hour, understandably, when your private space is not really your private space, but in India it's public space in general, it turns out that many more people go in there. It's not worth talking about the management system in general, but it's a bit more developed there too. And if we are talking about the level of innovativeness and the level of those solutions that were supposed to be and are being tested, now let's just say that this is one of the complexes that we are potentially planning to scale in the future. And the TU4 line, that's the closest now to what will be implemented at the customer. So for us, this line is one of the most basic ones. The second most important to me is uLite.
Да, планируем вот как раз масштабировать. И линия ТУ-4 — это наиболее близкая, да, сейчас к тому, что будет реализовано у клиента. Поэтому для нас эта линия одна из самых основных. Да, то есть вот вторая, которая по значимости, вот для меня, по крайней мере, это вот uLite.
I think it's also important to add here that the design documentation can actually be done as well as possible. And we do our best, and we always manage to carry out project work as efficiently as possible. But still, it's one thing to design and another thing to build, especially when it comes to building for the first time in the world. Sergei Gennadiyevich, you said that there were a number of difficulties that we successfully solved. Fortunately, the competencies allowed, but we could afford to face such difficulties in this format. When there is a USky testing and certification center, and there is a right to some kind of mistake, some kind of extension, some kind of the rescheduling, it is still present. When we are talking about commercial projects, we have no right to make a mistake, and any holdbacks are unacceptable, because our business reputation will depend on it. The success of the business in general will depend on it. Therefore, before entering the construction site for commercial projects, we really had to build this facility. We have successfully built it, and we will commission it next year. And do I understand correctly, Sergei Gennadiyevich, that we are also certifying this complex in parallel? Can you tell me more about it?
Мы его введем в эксплуатацию. И я правильно понимаю, Сергей Геннадьевич, что параллельно мы еще и осуществляем сертификацию этого комплекса?
Yes, of course. In fact, I would even say that we are not carrying out certification in parallel, but we already started it last year. I will mention here the involvement of our partner. Let's say I call it a partner because we have been working with this company for probably 3 years. It's a world-renowned TUVSW company. If I'm not mistaken, they have their head office in Austria. But accordingly, the TUVSW standardization certifications are registered here in the Arab Emirates. We have already engaged them in the past for the certification of the first test site. Let me remind you that we have a test site and a flyover only 400 meters long. Then we had this work with TUV in the year 2020, according to the results of which we received the certification of conformity. Accordingly, we are now duplicating the same work on the fourth test site, Carat, as we now call it. This work was already started in advance. That is, since the construction of the flyover was divided into sub-stages, we initially had anchor supports, intermediate supports, and subsequently, we raised the track structure on the structures built in advance. Accordingly, we started certification of intermediate supports well in advance, when our track structure was not even fully ready, and as of today, the certificate is already in place. It is available on our official website. So, we have confirmed the compliance of our steel structures, primarily our intermediate supports, to various, again, regulation standards, and we have confirmed their safety, which is very critical and vital in our industry and sector. We have the certification work for the fourth test site divided into 2 stages. The first stage, we have just completed work with intermediate supports, and the second stage consists of several sub-stages, which include certification of the flyover, of the track structure itself, certification of the anchor supports, and certification of the vehicle, as we call it, the Unimobile, the Unibus Carat U4211. That's the internal name of our model. And this work within the framework of the second stage of the track structure certification is already starting in the near future. As for the vehicle, it will be the next sub-stage after we have completed all the commissioning work on all systems of the Unimobile in full. And the anchor supports, They are also ready for the start of the
И
certification
данная
stage,
работа,
but it is more
в плане
expedient to
всех
combine the
технических,
anchor
то есть в рамках
supports
уже
and the
второго
track
этапа
structures themselves
по
into one volume in order to attract
сертификации
this
путевой
company.
структуры уже сейчас
Thus,
она
this
начинается в
work is
ближайшее
already
время.
planned for the beginning of the next
По
year,
транспортному средству она
2024,
будет
taking into account the
в
approaching new
следующем
year.
подэтапом.
In
После
terms of
того,
length,
как
it's
у нас
actually not
закончится
such a
сейчас в
labor-intensive
полной
process,
мере все
especially given that we
установочные
already
работы
have
по всей
substantial
системе
experience in this
мини-модели.
area.
И
Therefore,
анкерные
we
опоры, в
estimate
принципе,
that
они у
at the
нас
beginning
тоже
of next
готовы
year,
к
this
началу
work can be
сертификационных
completed in
этапов,
full in
но
about 2 to 3 months.
целесообразнее анкерные опоры и саму путевую структуру объединить в один объем, чтобы привлечь данную компанию. Ну, таким образом, эта работа у нас с учетом приближающегося Нового года уже запланирована на начало следующего, 24-го. По протяженности, на самом деле, это не такой трудоемкий процесс, особенно учитывая, что у нас уже есть опыт, существенный опыт в этом направлении. То есть, поэтому мы оцениваем, что в начале следующего года данная работа в полном объеме может быть завершена примерно в 2-3-месячных сроках.
Выходит, что мы
It turns out that we carry out the certification and commissioning procedure in parallel in 2 different regions, in 2 different jurisdictions, in 2 different regions in terms of the regulatory framework, the legal framework, I mean the CIS territory and the Arab Emirates, where there are really British norms that are adopted in the United States. This is also a very important project, which we also successfully brought close to completion this year. This is the uLite project, the first commercial project implemented by Unitsky String Technologies Inc. Maxim Nikolaevich. In a nutshell, please. I have a question for you. What is the importance, the fatefulness of this uLite project? Although it seems that the project is small, both in terms of passenger traffic and length. That is, we are not talking about the dramatic traffic of 50,000 passengers per hour or something even close. A small project, quite modest, of tourist purpose. Why is it so important to us?
Мы не говорим о колоссальных там перевозках, 50 тысяч пассажиров в час или что-то даже близко. Маленький проект, довольно скромный, туристического назначения. Почему он так важен для нас?
Firstly, uLite is not about novelty or technical sophistication. It's lightweight. It's one of the cheapest transport lines we've ever had built. Because it is so simple yet cheap, it is also reliable, simply because there's not much to fail in it. All the elements there are brought down to minimalism, let's put it that way. We tried out there, by the way, also non-landed installation, simply because this line runs over the water, over the road, and we have no right for an inordinate length of time, for months, to close them, to do some installation and so on. So here it was carried out very quickly. By the way, uLite is one of our energy-efficient vehicles. If we talk about the other aspects more as development, this is the country's first official commercial autonomous vehicle. There are no others like it. I mean, this is something we can be proud of. Imagine you want to buy a car, even a car much cheaper than our complex costs. But as soon as you see a make unfamiliar to you, even a Chinese car, let's say, the first time you see it, you go to the internet and rear feedback, but at the same time you read them not on the manufacturer's website. Why is that? Trust, but verify marketing. It's regular classic topic. And it's a real opportunity for our customers. When they say, here's the first commercial project, why is it important to them? It is important to them to get an independent opinion, neither from us nor from anyone else, on how this line works, how it is operated, and so on. And here, as soon as this project is launched, the feedback will come, because it is an open area. That is, you can just buy a ticket, come and ride with your family. Still, I remind you, test sites and tests are done not for operation. They are done to test our technical solutions. And on top of it, we talked about contract strategy and the fact that it's part of the intellectual property. Nobody shares it. And here, because it is in another legal entity, you can just develop all these contracts, communicate with the state, and these types of contracts pass, and these types do not pass, and so on. What are the risks here? We shouldn't forget about certification as well. Remember, we said that certification should take place in the country where we are going to do it, but we need a project for that. And this is precisely the opportunity for us to travel this path, even if with small changes, because other countries, other standards, and so on, but to travel this path. And the same specialists who have now traveled the path will do it much faster already on other projects. And in general, this is a plus. This project, especially for me, for my team. And, in general, it seems to me, for the group of companies, it is so important because it is light, simple, reliable. At other times, it is our first, and indeed such, locomotive, the first commercial project.
которые сейчас прошли путь, будут делать это намного быстрее, да, то есть уже на других проектах, и в целом это плюс. Вот этот проект, вот особенно там для меня, для моей команды, и в целом, мне кажется, для группы компаний, он настолько важен, потому что он легкий, простой, надежный, да, в другое время он вот такой первый, и действительно это такой наш локомотив, да, первый коммерческий проект.
Thank you. So, in general, we can summarize and say that these two projects, where most of the construction works and the start of commissioning took place in 2023, are the pre-final testing of our main solutions, both technological ones and solutions in the field of preparation of the contractual framework, the regulatory framework, before we start building commercial tracks. Well, it really is. Indeed, most of the solutions that we are developing today, the same project management, are designed for quite large passenger traffic. And this is exactly the type of complexes that we are putting into operation this year, and next year we will put into operation in Sharjah. As a result, we can say that the design base has been created by us. The Unitsky's engineering school has been developed. There is already experience in certification of regulatory confirmation. There is experience in construction, which is also priceless. We sensibly assess the risks that exist and are ready to enter commercial projects on the basis of this experience. And questions remain, in particular for those who follow the development of our project, about the readiness of the material base for the production of rolling stock. Here, I would like to ask the director of the SV plant production complex to tell us how our production complex is currently staffed, how many employees are there, what equipment is available, and how quickly and in what quantity we can produce rolling stock for our commercial projects.
Директора производственного комплекса СВ Планта рассказать о том, как на сегодняшний день укомплектован наш производственный комплекс, сколько там сотрудников, какое есть оборудование и насколько быстро, в каком количестве мы можем производить подвижной состав под наши коммерческие проекты.
Good afternoon, dear audience colleagues. Today we have 4,000 meters of production area, 150 employees, including 90 production workers, who over the years, with their own hands, have assembled, made parts of 13 units of vehicles. In addition, individual components of the track structure, tooling, test fixtures, and parts for the infrastructure complex were manufactured at the production facilities. We have brought together the key specialists with the competences to ensure the assembly of vehicles, prototypes, as well as to enter small batch production. To date, there are more than 100 units of various equipment, tooling, and accessories in production. We have 7 machining centers, 4 of which are from the global manufacturer Okuma. This year we purchased another machining center of joint Belarusian-Chinese production. Negotiations are now underway for the purchase and delivery of another machining milling center next year. Production is constantly growing and expanding. As of today, we can confidently say that we will fulfill our goal of starting mass production of vehicles. We have the main specialists in all fields. We have widely developed relations on interplant cooperation with machine-building enterprises of the Republic of Belarus, because not all competences are economically feasible to keep at SV plant production. Of course, we place some of works, such as heat treatment of parts, electroplating, powder coating, in cooperation. In order to achieve serial production of vehicles on the existing premises, we will need to recruit additional production personnel to cover the second and, if necessary, the third working shift. At the same time, we are able to reach the production capacity of 10 units of rolling stock per month within 10 to 12 months.
Экономически целесообразно держать на производстве СВ-плант. Часть переделов, таких как термическая обработка деталей, гальвано-покрытие, порошковая окраска, мы размещаем, конечно, по кооперации. Для того, чтобы выйти на серийный выпуск транспортных средств на имеющихся площадях, нам необходимо будет дополнительно набрать производственный персонал для того, чтобы закрыть вторую, при необходимости третью рабочую смену. При этом мы способны в течение 10-12 месяцев выйти на производственные мощности по выпуску 10 единиц подвижного состава в месяц.
Well, yes, and taking into account the fact that the number of rolling stock is measured in hundreds so far, at this stage, is it correct to understand that today we can completely cover the needs for rolling stock for projects with the help of production?
В принципе, вот силами производства на сегодняшний день можем полностью закрыть потребности в подвижном составе под проекты.
Да, конечно.
Yes, of course. There is time for preparation directly for the design of the complex. Construction installation works and vehicles are required only at the moment of putting the track structure into operation. That is, delivery of vehicles at the stage of readiness of the construction part of the track structure. Accordingly, we have this time to recruit personnel and organize additional production facilities in the territory of the Republic of Belarus, or, if such a decision is taken, in the state where this project will be implemented. We have all the trained technicians who have assembled all the previous units of equipment. They are the backbone of our production unit, who are ready to train newly hired employees, both in the territory of the Republic of Belarus and in other countries.
Все специалисты обученные, собравшие все предыдущие единицы техники у нас имеются. Они костяк нашего производственного подразделения, которые готовы обучать вновь принятых работников как на территории Республики Беларусь, так и осуществлять обучение в других странах.
Thank you, Alexei Sergeyevich. We can say, probably, that there will certainly be such a need. So, friends, I would like to summarize here that in terms of staffing, in terms of understanding the market, in terms of understanding and working out the rules of action, in terms of the regulatory framework, and most importantly, from the point of view of working out installation technologies, transport lines, production technologies, and capacities of our SV plant complex itself, we are fully and completely ready to enter the construction site and expect to do so next year. I thank you, colleagues, for participating in our teleconference. I would like to thank the audience and remind you that at the end of this series, during which we have tried to answer the main questions we received during the year, our viewers can watch a presentation by Anatoly Unitsky, General Designer, and Nadezhda Gendievna Kosareva, General Director of Unitsky String Technologies Inc., summarizing the results of the group of companies for the 2023. See you next time.
Основные из тех вопросов, которые получали за год. Наших зрителей ждет выступление генерального конструктора Юницкого Анатолия Эдуардовича и генерального директора Unitsky String Technologies Надежды Геннадьевны Косаревой с подведением итогов работы группы компаний за 2023 год. До новых встреч!